All right, everybody, welcome to the RSP Film Room. I am Matt Waldman. Thank you very much for tuning in here. And joining me is one Mark Schofield with Inside the Pylon, with Pro Football Weekly, with Locked On the Patriots, with Big Blue Review, I believe, as I'm remembering that, or Big Blue, the Giants website,
Yeah, whatever.
yeah,
Giants that. Yeah.
football guys, and of course the RSP. And
Yeah.
so part of our RSP commitment that we've been decided to do together is that once a month we get together and watch some tape on some quarterbacks. So Mark, it's always a pleasure to have you on and do this.
Matt, my buddy, how are you, my friend? It's always good to be here. Always good to break down some tape. And what's interesting, the guy we're doing today, we were talking about it before we hit record. And the new format we've been using is you and I, we each pick some plays and we don't share but ahead of time, what we're picking. I actually asked you, I said, I hope you have some negative stuff because I don't really have. I have like one kind of negative play. And I
Yeah.
think you've got like one or two. He's a guy that I think people are giving some attention to, but he's still weirdly flying under the radar as people are talking about like Herbert, who's good, and some other guys. But this guy seems to be flying under the radar, and I don't understand why.
Yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat with you in that. And it was kind of funny that you mentioned that to me because he's my top rated quarterback right now. And obviously it's early and I don't do the, ranking throughout the season type of thing. But he's a guy that, if I put him in the class that we just saw, he would be up there with some of the guys that were, major players in in last year's quarterback class. So, considering that everyone says this is not a good quarterback class, well, we heard that 2 years ago with
What?
Deshaun
Yeah,
Watson and
yeah.
this guy from Kansas City, and all
What's
that.
his
So
name again?
I don't know, but
Okay.
but yeah. Anyway,
I've heard people talking about Kansas City having some new quarterback, but I haven't paid attention to it too much.
yeah, I haven't figured out either. Looks like an old quarterback to me,
Uh,
but anyway, we're gonna get started here. If you're new to the, we can't stop giggling about
that
that
was an
guy, can
incredible line. Oh my goodness.
we? He does kind of look like an old quarterback to me, but yeah, I mean, with that in mind, the RSP film room, what we like to do is have a couple of guests watch film. We're going to review tape. We picked out plays separately that we wanted to see on Will Grier that we thought were indicative of his game or interesting about evaluation in general. So it's kind of a mishmash of those things. And we'll take probably about an hour going through these plays and doing that. So I'm going to get everything set up and we will be right back to get this started. Okay, and we're back. Now that I got technical things set up here, let's go ahead and we're going to share this screen, get rid of my ugly mug in a minute here if we can figure out how to do that. We're going to share this. Yeah, there we go. Share our screen. And here we go. All right. Can you see that, Mark?
I can.
Okay. And you see my little timer. I'm going to move that timer out of the way here. And we will begin. No, not with Tennessee. We're going to start with your plays because I like looking at your plays first. And since I have to talk through this thing and be a host, we're going to look at your stuff first.
Works for me.
All righty. So should we start slow? We always do. Let's see. Let's do this with the kind of at the slow speed at half speed. And we are off with Will Grier against Iowa State on this particular play. Let's watch what we have happening here. All right, so already looks like what we got trips one side, single the other.
Yeah, a bunch left, single to the other. You're going to get kind of a combination look, cover 3-ish here. First of all, I love everything he's done to the point there because he's nice. He's bouncing on the heels. He's moving well in the pocket. And then just throws the ball out of the stadium.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean,
Yeah. Yeah, but I mean, I love sort of the footwork, the fluidity, the sort of quick. He gets blitzed here.
yeah.
I mean, again, it's just a double, it's a 3-3-5 type look.
And
Maybe even be 3-2-6, but
he even looks off to that side
yeah.
here. Nice job.
Doesn't panic. He knows that they've got numbers. He knows that, look, it's 5 versus 5 plus his back, who's in protection. So he's not panicky. Little short, choppy steps here. I mean, the mechanics right there, look, they're not perfect. I mean, it's very wide throw and base. This is more like a javelin than a quarterback throwing a football.
Yeah.
But
And
you don't argue with the results when you see him like that, when you see sort of the process that got him there.
exactly. If we're going to nitpick the ball, you might say, okay, maybe a safety is able to cut off this throw because the receiver had to wait on it ever so slightly. You know,
Right.
maybe if you're facing Earl Thomas,
Yep.
you know, this is not a good throw. But on the whole,
Right. Yeah. And it comes from, the minus 35 to the plus, 7, 8, I'd say.
yeah. And
Even almost the plus 6.
he only has to wait a step on this
Yeah.
particular throw. So it's as close to pinpoint without being pinpoint as you can
Right.
get.
And, remember, you want general accuracy in the deep ball. You're not, so hung up on, does he put it on the right shoulder or the left shoulder or whatever. I mean, so this is a good throw. And, I just kind of wanted to open things up here with, one of the things he does really well, which is throw the deep ball.
Yeah, exactly. And I love what you mentioned about the pocket. He is poised with bodies around him, and you don't even have that here. But when he sees that flash of of pressure up the middle, he doesn't panic with that. And you see a lot of college quarterbacks who do, even when it's picked up. So,
Right. Yeah,
that's,
no, I mean, he's completely calm and settled in the pocket here. Just a very nice play.
yeah. So let's move on. We'll look at this West Virginia play here. Let me slow this one down as well. All right. 2x2.
2x2, you've got really wide split safeties here. You get, mesh with the running back, moves, slides, and then, perfect read here to attack middle of the field with this route. He makes sort of one of these collegiate style anticipation throws where he knows you've got, underneath trail defender here in coverage, but it's still open.
Yeah.
He doesn't wait for it to get better. He recognizes that this is as good as it gets, but this is the right read to throw here. And he makes a perfect throw.
Yeah.
And we get a great replay angle of it too.
Absolutely. Are you hearing my phone ringing?
No.
Okay, good. So then hopefully the recorder doesn't pick that up either. But apparently my Gmail phone was ringing. So, but I'm not answering it because I don't really care. There you go.
Yeah, and this is just, again, you see the pocket start to collapse around him a little bit, but there's never a sense that he's dropping his eyes, that he's feeling it, that he's reacting to it. The eyes are trained downfield. Just a very nice throw.
Yeah, it really is. And he's very good, I find, on these type of like over routes or skinny posts. Yeah. And he's willing to, and we're going to see more of this, I think, where just him targeting based on what he sees with the leverage and of the coverage and knowing that it's going to be open or it's going to draw a penalty.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, I mean, he's definitely, when we talked about Stidham, and we talked about sort of challenging that intermediate area of the field, that middle of the field, he's willing to do it. Yeah. And, look at that subtle pocket movement. That's just a great read and throw. And anytime you see an angle like this and you don't see the target come into the field until after the ball is out, it's one of those more anticipation type throws.
Exactly. And what's nice too is, I mean, this again with as you alluded to, earlier before we hit the record button, that there were some people who just kind of wondered if Big 12 quarterbacks could make it in the NFL or spread quarterbacks in general. And this is certainly a guy that plays in an offense that's been, has its variations and adaptations in the Big 12. And you can see that even if he doesn't measure quite 6'2", right, at the combine, he knows how to find open creases, open passing lanes, because you're throwing between these guys. You're not throwing over them, unless you're 6'7" and Brock Osweiler, and then you're throwing through people.
And when for example Mayfield went through that sort of the can you see over Lyman? Watch how he steps around his running back here.
Yeah.
It's such a small little thing, but he creates that throw in lane. So, sometimes you might see a taller quarterback able to make that throw behind his running back. So he has to move a little bit. That's how these quarterbacks, these undersized or quote unquote undersized quarterbacks do it.
Yeah. And then you can say in contrast, well, there's Ben Roethlisberger, who's tall, who's big. And then you look at him in pass protection drills in the summer where they have him going through a drill and they're throwing stuff at him and he's supposed to avoid it all. And, all of the other quarterbacks who rely on their quickness to get it done, they're avoiding everything. Ben Roethlisberger's like using the ball to bat down everything and like shirking through it and like completely failing the drill and throwing it and everybody's laughing. But the point is he's like, I'm not trying to be an obstacle course dog. I'm trying to be a bulldozer, and
Right.
that's what I'm going to be. And this drill can kiss my behind, you
Yep.
know? So that's basically, sometimes you just have to understand this is how you get things done. So,
Yep.
yeah, really good points there, Mark, with this particular throw. Let's look at another Kansas State special. And I have a feeling I know what this one is because I think I featured this one on a boiler room this summer. Yeah, I think I have. So this is going to be a fun one to.
Yeah. And this is, there are two things I kind of want to focus on here. One is speeding up your process as a quarterback. There are times when you have to do that. And two, it's sort of reacting to pressure and blitzes from the slot or the boundary because we get that sort of backside blitz there. You see it come in late, and he sees it ever so quickly and gets the ball out to his running back in the flat.
Yeah.
And it's just a simple little play. It picks up a first down, sure, gets you, you keep the drive alive on a third down situation, which is great. But these are the kind of things that people often say, look, these spread type quarterbacks, these air raid type quarterbacks, they don't know how to respond to a blitz. They don't know how to react in a situation where they have to go through progression reads or make snap decisions because they're throwing to wide open guys. Well, it's not entirely true. And you see it here because, you might expect him to wait on that, spot route or wait on something on the backside or throw that free access hitch down to the bottom of the screen there. And maybe you could say, look, that's what he's supposed to do. But he makes the other decision here, which is probably the easier throw and the smarter one to make, which is I've got to run it back in the flat away from this blitz. I'm just going to throw that and forget everything else.
Yeah. And this wasn't the play, but that's a great point. And there are a couple other plays in this game where you see him being able to adjust his platform and to be able to make the accurate throw with an adjustment under pressure and not panic, and it's more of, again, that get her done type of play where the mechanics aren't by the textbook, but the textbook doesn't cover the mechanics it should when it comes to, off platform under pressure situations. So yeah, that's another good, and it's finding the easy play as we mention all the time. Tom Brady's a master of finding the easy play, turning the difficult situation into an easy one. So let's see where we had here.
Yeah, this is one of the sort of negatives that I have about him, and this is still going to be a good play, okay, for the most part. But watch the ball as he moves through this play where he sort of scrambles, doesn't really have anything to throw to, right? We're seeing it here.
Yeah.
This is one of the issues I do have with him because this can work on Saturday against Kansas. It's not going to work on Sunday against Khalil Mack and Roquan Smith. It's not. You've got to be safer with the football. Number one, secure it, ball security. Number two, you might not want to try to sort of take this guy on in the open field like he tries to do here.
Right.
Like there are times you're going to learn, ask Deshaun Watson, ask Carson Wentz to take care of yourself.
Yeah. And I think that this is the point oftentimes where in college you have one or two guys that are pretty good at being able to locate the ball and knock it loose.
Yep.
In the NFL, really, there's probably 8 to 11 guys on every defense that do that. So.
Yeah. And so that's going to be a situation where he's going to either learn to not do that or he's going to create some turnovers and turn his coaches gray or bald. And that's what you don't want to do as a quarterback. You don't want to make them bald or anything like that.
So is that a statement about Bruce Arians?
I mean, well, I'm not a Bruce Arians because, look, no risk it, no biscuit. He'd probably be okay with that.
Yeah, that's true.
Maybe some other guys.
Maybe all the yelling caused the hair to fall out. I don't know. But he looks a lot like David Dodds. You haven't met David Dodds yet, have you?
No, I haven't.
But he's a dead ringer. I'm telling you, we make fun of them all the time. We get, if he wore a red one of those red Kango type caps, I'm telling you, he would people might be asking him for autographs, or if he shows up in Arizona, they might be mad at him. I don't know.
So I included this play, just a simple check down, to sort of get at that notion again of, air raid, spread offense. He's not making a ton of reads. This is obviously 2-minute drill type situation. You've got sort of a mirrored route concept where you get verticals and then a sit route, on the left. Yep. You've got this little spot route, right up there from that slot receiver. So it's pretty much a mirrored concept. He goes full field, left to right, sideline, up, spot, vertical, and then checks it down. And now it's coming against a 3-man rush. So he's not completely pressured, but he realizes that, look, they're dropping 8. This is the best throw I've got. So I'm just going to take it.
And you can see the change in tempo as the pressure gets close to him up the middle.
Yep.
So there are a lot of guys who are like, oh, they're only rushing 3, and then they just lack that feel for the pocket. So even if they're only pressuring 3, because the most ridiculous, the biggest criticism you're going to hear is when a quarterback in a situation like this takes a sack and they're like, they're only rushing 3. How do you not be able to tell who one of those 3 people are coming at you? And it's because they get too focused on trying to find that perfect throw downfield as opposed to just saying, all right, let me be efficient and get rid of it.
Yeah. No, it's just, and you see sort of the off-platform throw that he makes here, rather than go through the extra step of getting the feet pointed, he just makes it from an awkward position and off-platform because he knows, look, you've got some guys that are slowly starting to rotate to this. I've got to get it out. This is what I've got to do. And he does it.
Yeah.
Now it's that get or done mentality. I think that's what we can call this kid.
Absolutely.
All right. This play I love. And again, it's another small little thing, and you might sense a theme as I'm trying to perhaps dissuade people of Grier, the wide open air raid gunslinger. This is sort of a spot type variant. If you go right there, you might think he's going to throw that corner route to number 12. You might think, oh, if he's going to be a gunslinger, that's what he's going to throw. There is a safety over the top, and he's looking right at it. But watch the rest of this come together.
Yeah.
He takes that little underneath route. And he gets it out quickly. He throws it in between into that soft spot right there. It's timed up particularly well with sort of how he comes to the outside, then whips back under. It's just a really little subtle decision, but I love it. And had he thrown that corner route, it's probably broken up or picked.
Yeah. Yeah, because you can see later on as we see, where is it? We'll watch number 12 and we'll see where that safety comes. And here comes that safety. Yeah. He was going to cut it off over the top.
The safety thought he was going to jump it for a pick.
Yeah. And Grier makes that last second decision for the wise throw. Yeah, no, that's a very astute observation with that particular play. Especially in a game where you see a lot of aggressive throws, which we're going to see in a little bit here.
No, I mean, because we're going to see it next.
Yeah.
Because this is like, I think, the very next play, or if not, like play after it.
And let me slow it down.
He comes out of a mesh here. He's got another one of those sort of crossing routes over the middle.
Yep.
And he throws it in the middle of 4 defenders, but it's the right read given the coverage, and he puts it in the absolute perfect spot.
Yeah, because this allows this man to handle it in stride.
Yeah. And this is sort of, you get the more conservative type decision a couple of plays prior, and then it allows you to then take the appropriate risk. Because now you've got 1st and 10, you've got this dialed up. It's the right read given the coverage. He makes a perfect throw. You get a little bit of perhaps an overplay here by this first defender. But it's an overplay because he hits him in stride.
Yep.
If the receiver has to slow up a bit, maybe he makes the tackle there. But because he hits him in stride, he keeps his momentum and speed going. He doesn't slow down a single step, and it allows him to get the corner and race into the end zone. Yeah. So it's sort of the juxtaposition, the duality of Will Grier as a quarterback, where you have the safe, conservative decision, and then either it's the next play, I forget, or a play after that. It's probably the next play. You see the aggressive decision, but a warranted, understandable aggressive decision executed perfectly.
Yeah, and you can look at this and say, well, maybe in the NFL, a savvy corner here who's that ancillary coverage outside, who's reading the quarterback, might actually realize that who he should be looking at here isn't the deep man, but the over route coming across, and he can come over and pick it off. A Denzel Ward type of a play that you've seen the rookie make very well against Pittsburgh a couple of times, where that he reads the eyes and is able to and knows where that quarterback's looking and where that break's going to be with coverage that isn't even his responsibility, but he knows based on just playing the game, understanding the, what the offense is trying to do and what he does as a defender to come off that. So you might nitpick that, but this is an on-point throw, and it would have been a very difficult play for number 6 to undercut and roll over like that. That would have been an incredible play, really, by the defender.
Yeah.
So yeah, right there, and I love that. And he throws with a good bit of zip in the middle of the field.
Yeah.
Right. So finally, here we go. This play, what I like about it is, again, reading where the coverage is and knowing that he can fit this ball in here.
Yeah.
I think that, he looks where the defender's is back to him. He just decides, I can throw this right over the front shoulder. I can squeeze this in, and I'm at worst going to draw a penalty here.
Right.
And while it's a drop pass, it's not a perfect throw where it needs to be. I was writing about this week that Drew Brees is really good at these types of throws. That he basically says the defender leverage is here. I know I'm accurate enough that I can force a ball in where either the receiver's going to catch it or the opponent is going to create a pass interference call, and we're going to get the ball, down at the 1 yard line.
Yeah. I mean, I think, I just wrote down appropriate aggression. And I think that's kind of where I'm starting to settle on with Grier here, because this is one of those throws, like you said, you see the back of the defender, you see his helmet. It reminds me a lot of a throw that Wentz made in that Rams game last year on a sort of a post route where, he saw the back of the defender who was basically play side trying to cover that late. And he's like, well, I will throw it in a spot away from that leverage, but I know it's open because I see the back of the guy's helmet. And this is that same kind of thing.
Yeah, Baker Mayfield did it with Jarvis Landry last week, on Thursday night. And that's the difference to me between a guy who's a playmaker and a guy who, is a managing it at a medium level or low level,
right,
in terms of the game. So yeah, that was that first one. So let's move on, and we're going to see a couple more, I think, with this. And I think this is a different play. We'll see. Yeah, this is the play that's kind of a positive and a negative to me. The positive is he nearly gets the ball to the guy.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're going to throw off platform under pressure and you're going to fit it in between two defenders, you're giving your receiver you're confident in being able to go up and win the ball an opportunity to make that play.
Yeah.
So I can say that and say, oh, that's a nice play. But there's a part of me that's also like, listen, it's 3rd and 8. You're in a 0-0 game. Early in the first quarter. Why are you going to go for it here? Give your team the chance to just throw the ball away and give your team a chance to hit the field goal here.
Yeah, this is one that, probably inappropriate aggression, because this is the throw that at that moment you got to throw it. And maybe I don't want to say he's trying to throw it away, but you got to throw it to your coach.
Yeah.
You got to throw it to Holderson on the sideline and say, all right, we're taking 3 points here.
Right. And I think that's the thing is with this is, people will say, well, the result, but sometimes you get good results or close to good results with bad process. And to me, this is like just bad process. What I like about the play early on is how he maneuvers the pocket. Because at first, you see he feels that inside pressure. You see him just take a step, just to slide. It's very subtle. He's just, he finds that open passing lane. He's trying to just buy time with small increments. And then when the small increments don't work because the dam bursts, now it's time to be able to slide. And he's still, not trying to run. He's trying to slide with his feet in a position to find the open man. And he sees a guy here. But again, he also reads the coverage coming across here and knows that he can't lead his man the way he wants to here. And the only way that he might even be able to throw this ball is if he can somehow loft it and get his man to turn his body. That's going to be a difficult play too. Yeah. So he's, everything he's doing here is wise at this point. And I like that it's not overreactive pocket movement. And then when it's time to react and do this is the only point where I'd say, don't do it. But this is also such a common thing we see with every young quarterback, which is, I've gotten this far. I've invested this much in this play.
Might as well take a shot.
Yeah. Here it is, and, as somebody might say, by golly, it almost happens.
Yeah, by golly.
Yeah, right. There we go. I don't know who. Somebody's grandpa or something. But
Somebody.
yeah, somebody. All right. All right. And as you can see, all these plays are Tennessee plays because I've already profiled like 3 games and a couple of them on the website. So I was just kind of like, let's watch a new game this morning. And it ended up being this Tennessee game. And all right, technical difficulties on my end. There we go. Basically, technical incompetencies on my end. Yeah, there we go. But I like him being able to throw on the move to his left and fitting that ball in.
Yep.
And again, it's just I like seeing when guys can move to their opposite throwing hand and set up with pretty good technique and fire that ball in.
Yeah, no, that's a very good throw. I'd say, he's like 3/4 of the way there to being like flawless.
Right.
I mean, because he does a fantastic job getting that left shoulder turned.
But
it's the right shoulder that kind of needs to come through just a bit more because, it's something I've been noticing. Like, for example, Mitchell Trubisky, you look at him, he threw a bad interception last year against Detroit in that second Detroit Lions game on a play like this, where he just failed to get that right shoulder all the way turned towards the target, which you want. Like Steve Axman, for example, wrote a book on, coach and quarterback mechanics, and he coached Troy Aikman at UCLA. He was his offensive coordinator. So you've got to finish that right shoulder, that off shoulder. I mean, it should be your throwing shoulder to the target as a right-handed quarterback moving to your left, because that's how you're going to get more velocity on it. Otherwise, it's going to sort of hang there.
Yeah.
And Trubisky did a bad job with that last year against the Lions, and he had to throw against their second game, whoever they beat in their second game on that Monday night game. The Seahawks, where he was moving to his left, and you could see him get that right shoulder turned a little bit more towards the target. And, this is a very good throw. Just the one way to make it a little bit better is to get that right shoulder turned more, finishing towards the target. But still a very good throw.
It's a great point. Great point. All right. And let's see. Working through this. Okay. This is another one of those appropriate aggression throws that I liked, because it's not so much where you're going to see it here is you see this kind of route concept where they're going to work, work in combination with each other to kind of create a rub right here. And Sills is going to, or number 8 is going to kind of work across that and then hopefully try and work back outside on this sail. And you see that the defender's kind of over top with him tight.
Mm-hmm.
And I like how he decides, look, I may be able to draw a penalty here. I might be able to draw a penalty. I can be aggressive. And I'm confident in where I can place this ball, where only the receiver may get a shot at it. Now, as you can see here, the safety's like, well, not quite.
Not exactly right.
But I still liked, and this is kind of the border with him, is again, I like the aggression with him, but I see where he straddles that line pretty finely.
Mm-hmm.
And in the NFL, he's going to have to learn where that boundary is going to shift for him.
Right. No, I mean, I like this read and throw. I mean, because I sort of look at the context of it, and, it's a 1st and 10. You're probably not in field goal range yet, but you're close. And so, you've got 2 timeouts. You're throwing this to the boundary anyway. The worst thing you could do is take a sack. So he has to get rid of it because he's getting some pressure. So he puts it in a spot where it would take a heroic play for the safety to intercept this. And the safety almost makes it, but 9 times out of 10, at least at this level, that safety isn't even getting a hand on the ball.
Right.
So I'm pretty okay with it.
Yeah. I mean, this may be Eric Berry's alma mater, but that isn't Eric Berry. So.
No, it's not.
Yeah. So, but it is. I mean, I think that's the thing, and you have to anticipate kind of what you're going to do at this point of the throw. And at this point, he's like, "Look, I'm in a good situation where maybe they'll call a penalty, they'll stop the clock, we'll get some yards, then we can operate a little bit more here." And it has to be a quick decision with
Yep.
this amount of time left. So again, I just like the decision making and thinking of how he's looking at the game here. All right. Now this looks like one of those deep throws that I think I was going to show off, just like you did earlier. Yep, just quick decision, let it go. And what I liked was against the blitz.
Yep.
You have this corner blitz coming. He knows that the safety's going to pick this guy up, and you can see him looking right at it. And he just kind of like, okay, let me just set up and throw. And he's very efficient with it.
Yeah. And, you know, that's as good as you can throw a deep ball.
Yeah.
And he makes this throw with some velocity. I mean, it's, 40 to, 5, right hash basically, but still, it's a perfect throw.
Yeah. And really, like, I'm redefining how I'm charting play distances. And I've kind of did it in like 14 to 15 yard increments. So I've kind of called it like short, intermediate, vertical, and deep. And because everyone talks about the vertical game, and I'm thinking, well, that's great, but why does the vertical game really 40 and above, and that's like a 20 to 25 yard range? And then some people say, well, if you only need to throw at 35, that's vertical too, And you think about where the vertical routes go, and they seem to be more in that 30-ish yard range, 30 to 45 yards. So when you think about, he's very pinpoint in the vertical game, and if you define it in that range.
Yeah, and I think that's probably the best way to define it.
Yeah. So I think the way that he's, you showed it on the exposures that you brought to the table. I've just shown a couple. It's just very clear that when he understands what's going on around him, and he understands pretty well, he's poised in the pocket. He makes quick decisions. He's aggressive, and most of the time appropriate with that aggression.
Yeah.
And here's another one. This is one where, David Sills is a good wide receiver prospect, but I think, and I wanted to see what you thought about this particular play, and we're going to get to see two views of it. I think this is a play where Sills just doesn't turn around quick enough, doesn't get his head around quick enough, and doesn't realize that this is converting or is a back shoulder play, and doesn't really attack this well. Because you're going to see him get his head around right here, and it's kind of late for him to do that.
Yeah.
And he's leaning back towards that ball and just letting it go by. And I think it becomes a little bit more in greater relief here when they show the camera on Sills here with our little Home Depot cam.
Wow, it's good to have a sponsor.
I'm telling you.
Yeah.
They're more likely to sponsor my wife than me, but
I know. You guys have been doing some work.
I'm telling you. But
yeah,
you can see,
I think you're exactly right. Like, he's late to recognize this. And, it's obvious that this wasn't a called conversion. That Grier sort of made this decision on the fly.
Yeah.
And he's just sort of late to pick it up. And that's part of his learning curve.
Yeah.
As a relatively new wide receiver, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. So, but he's very, obviously very athletic guy, very graceful, catches the ball well. But you can see here, he needs to be turning around a little bit quicker and tracking that ball a little bit quicker here. And then learning to, at the point, plant that foot in, and he should already be turned, plant that foot in and attack the ball. And that's where
he kind of lets the ball basically kind of eat him up here.
Yeah, he's just a step behind with everything he did on that particular play.
Yeah.
So, all right. But it was just another one of those plays where, in the pros, that's going to be a complete pass a lot of times.
Yeah.
And that's why I wanted to show that. All right. And I think we got a couple more here.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah. And this is an example. It's almost like in contrast of the last play.
Yep.
In the sense of like knowing where this needs to be thrown, looking off to his left, coming back to his right, delivering that ball with anticipation, knowing it the leverage of the coverage, and saying it's going outside shoulder right here, baby.
Yeah. This is amazing because I literally just got done writing a piece about trying to explain Fitz magic. And there was a throw that he made against the Saints to OJ Howard, basically on this same route concept,
Yes.
where he freezes Marcus Williams in the middle of the field and then just comes late to it. And yeah.
Right over the linebacker, isn't it?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know exactly the play you're talking about.
And that's Ryan Fitzpatrick, 14 or so year veteran who I think went to Harvard. I'm not sure people recognize that,
Oh,
but he
really?
went to Harvard. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know if you knew that. We're contrasting that with Will Grier, who has yet to even enter the NFL. And they're doing the same exact stuff, the same exact execution. And yeah, I think this is just a perfect play.
So I'm just wondering if, since my little brother's there right now, he's getting his doctorate. Do you think he might grow a Fitzmagic beard? Do you think that's like a requisite to do that?
I think he should. I think all Harvard alumni should have to grow the Fitzmagic beard now.
Yeah, I think that would make sense. And then you can maybe the next thing he could do is shave his head, and he can do the Conor McGregor, or if he can't do that, he could do the Monopoly Man. So
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah,
that's quite the contrast between the Monopoly Man and Conor McGregor.
That's true, but maybe in 30 years, Conor McGregor might look like the Monopoly Man.
He might need a second career.
That's true. So we could have Monopoly the MMA edition. So
I like it.
Yeah, there we go. So this was beautiful. Let's move on to our last two plays. As my computer's saying, "Hey, I'm working overtime here to do all this stuff." So my computer's as old as the Monopoly Man, I think. So that's probably what's going on.
Home Depot needs to get you a new computer. Maybe you need a Dell sponsorship or something.
Right? Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is it. All right. Okay. What I love about this, again, it's that appropriate aggression, and it's almost just kind of trolling the man. When that man's back is like that, it's just like, I can attack this. And it's just such a beautiful throw to drop it in the bucket like that.
Yep. And what I love about it is the lead leg, where he's got a little bit of pocket collapse, so he can't step into it.
Yeah.
So it's just a tiny, tiny baby step, and then all shoulder torque to get that out there. And again, we see him, open middle of the field, come to the right. Just, it's just incredibly well done from snap to finish.
Yeah. That was just a gorgeous play. All right, and our final one here. All right. Okay. This one was interesting because you mentioned the ball security.
Mm-hmm.
And I noticed that too with him last year. And this is a play where it's not great, but you can see it getting better. Like he switches the ball away from the arm where the defender's reaching for it. He gets both hands on it again, tucks it, and slides and just takes what's there and doesn't get hurt. And I like that. So we'll watch it in slow-mo one time here. So I like the fact that I'm seeing a little progress. I'm going to want to watch him more, obviously, this year and see how he does. But, he's got both hands on the ball here. Now it comes off. He starts to feel that defender reaching for him. And he does that, shoulder reduction turn with both hands. It's drilled, but one hand comes off due the defender kind of reaching in. And he just switches the ball. And while he needs to not hold it out there like that, like he's the Statue of Liberty, you know, at the same time, you can see he's becoming more conscious about protecting it.
I think it's appropriate at this time to remind our lovely viewers that you and I do not coordinate on the selection of plays here, because I think it's amazing that, I picked that play I did to highlight, my concerns about it. And then you had that same concern, and then you have this play to show that there is growth. However minimal or incremental it might be, there are still things he needs to work on in this area. But it's clear that he's cognizant of it as well, which shows you a quarterback who wants to get better.
Right.
So I think how that all just sort of came together organically is just a nice little moment here on this RSP episode.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it. And I think that's what makes this fun, is that when we're evaluating players and getting a chance to do this, and we're coming together separately on it, that it just shows what we see in common and what we don't. And there are things that I took notes on today, that you were talking about in terms of like, especially the time where he looks at that corner route and checks down to the other that I didn't notice that I thought was really good, and then just what you're talking about and the fact that we kind of saw similar
Yeah.
things and just had a kind of an answer for it, or even if it was a small one. So, as always, Mark, this is always a lot of fun.
It really is. These are great, and what I love about them is the ability to sort of work through a prospect and refine and shape your own sort of picture of him. Because to take it to Will Grier, as we were saying at the beginning, I think he's a better prospect than he's getting attention for, right now. I think people are kind of, I don't want to say sleeping on him because look, there are people out there studying these guys all the time. But I think with, Drew Lock and Justin Herbert and, even Dwayne Haskins, the Ohio State kid, I think people a lot are kind of looking away from Greer. And there's a great quarterback in here. And he's somebody that I do think will project to the next level and project very well to the next level. And there is some ugliness to the mechanics or whatever and the ball security stuff. But I'm reminded in a sense of Darnold. And, some of the concerns we had with Darnold and the mechanics and the footwork and things like that, you still saw that he was a guy that understood leverage and was willing to take some risks, some appropriate risks, maybe too aggressive at times. But I think we're seeing with Greer, it's usually appropriate and usually understandable in the context of the moment. And so I like this kid. And he may not end up being quarterback one for me or others, but he's somebody that should be in the discussion.
Yeah, and I think that another player that we could talk about is the guy that we didn't mention at the beginning of this show, in the sense that that Kansas City Chief who ran around in a Big 12 school and an offense that had some similarities to this one, and was seen as a gunslinger, but seems to often showed a lot of very appropriate aggression. It was just unheard of aggression that was for it to be appropriate
Right.
because of his skills. And then on top of it, he didn't have great ball security either at times moving around, and he still doesn't when you look
Right.
at it. So it's like sometimes a lot about scouting players is yeah, you list everything, but you have to weight them appropriately and figure out where certain things can fit better than others and certain offenses, and then where we're looking at and saying, well, it's not by the book, but the book is limited.
Yeah.
And how do we make those types of judgment calls? And I think that we explored those gray areas pretty well with Will Grier today. And I'm with you. I think that he belongs in the conversation as one of the top prospects, even though that he's not seen that way at this position. And it's going to be exciting to see how he does, later this season, as well as in the pre-draft phase of the silly season that we so much enjoy.
That we love.
Yes. So, on behalf of Mark and myself, thank you again for tuning into this RSP Film Room. You can check out more RSP content at mountwaldmanrsp.com. You'll find a lot of Mark's great work there every week, looking at breaking down NFL quarterbacks as well as college guys. And of course, there's the RSP Cast, the new podcast that's coming out weekly. You can check out Mark also, obviously, at ITP, at PFW. You can also find his work, on the Locked On Patriots podcast that he does daily. Does fantastic work covering New England. Check that out. And thanks again, everyone. And have a good week.